Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today, well, it's pretty straightforward. We're going deep into a stack of sources covering 7 of the world's most genuinely unsettling, famously haunted locations. And we're aiming to move beyond just the Halloween fun, you know?
Exactly.
We want to get into the history, the architecture, the folklore, why these places feel so heavy.
That's the core of it for you, the listener. These aren't just ghost stories in isolation. They're like historical markers, places where intense human events, tragedy, death, long confinement seem to have left a real atmospheric legacy. We're connecting those dots for you between the legend and the actual history.
Right. So it's not just this place is haunted. It's why does this specific story, this particular detail, make the claim of a haunting stick? We're looking at places from Paris and London all the way to Tokyo and Hong Kong, trying to figure out what makes these spots so persistently eerie.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Fear doesn't just pick spots at random. It tends to anchor itself where suffering was really concentrated. Let's kick things off with maybe the ultimate example of that, the catacombs in Paris.
Okay, yeah, the Empire of the Dead. Our sources, they paint this overwhelming picture. I mean, we're talking about a labyrinth 20 meters underground. It holds the remains of over 6 million people. The scale is just staggering.
It really is. And to get the sense of, well, dread, you need the context.
Yeah.
It didn't start as a burial site. It was actually an old underground quarry system going way back to the 1300s.
Right.
But then late 18th century, Paris had this massive public health problem. The city cemeteries were literally overflowing.
Spilling out, contaminating things. Horror.
Exactly. So the solution, kind of brutal but necessary, was to dig up the bones from the cemeteries and basically reorganize them down in these tunnels.
A logistical solution to a pretty gruesome problem.
Precisely. And that history, that necessity, is why the atmosphere feels so charged down there. You feel it instantly, that drop in temperature, the air changes. And just seeing the sheer number of skulls, femurs, all stacked up anonymously. It's this huge monument to mass death.
And the sources always highlight that inscription, right? The one above the entrance. Arrête, c'est ici l'Empire de la Mort. Stop, this is the Empire of Death. It's less a warning, more like a statement of fact.
A declaration. And that feeling, it's absolutely soaked into the local stories. The claims are visceral. It's not just feeling cold. People report feeling disoriented, watched, hearing faint whispers. And the sources mention this bit of local lore. Tours only run during the day. Why? Because the story goes that after midnight, well, the walls themselves start to speak. It's like the collective murmur of millions who are moved there without consent.
That idea of involuntary relocation after death, yeah, that's deeply unsettling. Okay, moving from that kind of geological confinement, let's pivot to places defined more by institutional confinement. Justice, punishment, war. Starting with Alcatraz Island in San Francisco.
Alcatraz. The Rock. Iconic. It was a federal prison from 1934 to 63. Housed some of America's most infamous criminals, Al Capone, George, Machine Gun Kelly, guys like that.
And the location itself adds to it, right? That freezing water, the fog, seeing the city so close but impossibly far.
Oh, absolutely. The psychological pressure must have been immense. And that's where the paranormal claims really take root. People talk about feeling this lingering presence, hearing, the actual sounds, wails, moans, echoing in the cell blocks.
It's not just a general feeling of creepiness, then.
No, it gets specific. And that's what makes it potent. The sources consistently point to punishment cell 14D. This wasn't just any cell. It was solitary total darkness. The legend is specific. A prisoner locked in there screamed all night about a creature with glowing eyes being in there with him. And then they found him dead the next morning. So the haunting has a name, a place, a story.
When fear gets an address like that, it becomes really memorable.
Okay. Let's shift to a building with a totally different feel, aesthetically at least. Toronto's Old City Hall.
Right. This is a great contrast, beautiful, grand, Romanesque building. When it opened back in 1899, it was actually the largest civic building in North America, a real symbol of, order, progress, civic pride.
But it was also a place of judgment. And it's in this interesting phase right now, isn't it? Still a courthouse, but just for a few more months before it becomes a museum.
Exactly. That transition almost highlights the layers of history. And the spooky reports are kind of jarring because of the formal setting. You hear about things like a poltergeist sort of playfully tugging on judges' robes.
Seriously?
Yeah, that's the story. And then, more disturbingly, those sounds, moans, reportedly coming from the old cellar areas where prisoners used to be held.
So echoes from the past bleeding through. And the most intense spot, predictably perhaps, is linked to the most severe judgment. Courtroom 33. This specific room is infamous because it's where the last death sentence by hanging in Canada was actually handed down. That finality, that weight of state-sanctioned death is said to cling to that room.
From individual prisoners to the finality of the law. Okay, let's look at how war trauma can linger, even in seemingly peaceful places. Let's go to Toyama Park in Tokyo.
Yeah, Toyama Park in Shinjuku. By day, it's lovely. Green, cherry blossoms, people relaxing. You wouldn't immediately suspect anything dark.
But the ground itself has a history.
It does. During World War II, this area hosted several medical facilities, some research labs, often involving prisoners of war.
And our sources suggest that what exactly went on there is, well, sensitive. The details are sort of kept under lock and key officially.
Right. And that lack of open acknowledgement, that secrecy, might be exactly why the haunting stories are so persistent and strong. Ever since the war, there have been just countless reports, consistent stories of disembodied cries, shadowy figures, especially seen around the hillsides, often linked, in folklore at least, to the horrors committed by certain units known for human experimentation. It's like the trauma couldn't be fully buried, even if the official records were sealed or obscured.
That's a really powerful idea of the landscape, remembering what official history tries to forget. Okay, let's shift focus now to more private tragedies, specific houses and their folklore. Starting with Ham House in London.
Ah, Ham House. Beautiful place, 17th century mansion right on the River Thames, gorgeous red brick. The haunting here is really centered on one specific person, Elizabeth, the Duchess of Lauderdale.
A powerful figure in her time.
Hugely powerful. But later in life, her health declined sharply, and she ended up confined almost entirely to one room on the ground floor.
And that room, the place of her isolation, that's the hot spot.
That's the claim, yes. It's the epicenter. Visitors don't just report, general creepy vibe. They talk about this pervasive feeling of deep, personal sadness, almost despair, concentrated in that room. The story is that the Duchess is still there, maybe still agitated about the loss of her status, her freedom. And the accounts often include her little dog, who was always with her, and even a loyal servant. It makes a haunting feel very personal, tied to her specific unhappiness and confinement, rather than, say, a big battle or mass disaster.
A haunting born from personal loss. Okay, from that aristocratic confinement, let's jump to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. The incredibly dense, bustling Wan Chai district in Hong Kong.
Yeah, Wan Chai. Packed with skyscrapers now, but the old stories, the old ghosts, they definitely persist there.
The hauntings are really tied into the local history, aren't they? WWII, the port.
Absolutely inseparable. The most famous spot is probably Nam Kwu Terrace. It's this big, slightly dilapidated mansion now, but during the war, it was used by the occupying Japanese military as a comfort house.
And just to clarify for listeners, that term refers to sites where women were systematically forced into sexual slavery. An incredibly traumatic history.
Immense trauma. And the ghost sightings reported at Nam Kwu Terrace are overwhelmingly connected to the suffering endured by those women. There's this reported atmosphere of just profound violence and despair.
And it's not just that one building.
No, the stories spill out. You hear reports near the old sailor hangouts like Southern Playground and along Lockhart Road, which used to be, heart of the action for sailors coming ashore.
And what's really fascinating, our sources point out how this belief is still part of daily life there.
It really is. You'll see shopkeepers, venue owners regularly burning incense outside their businesses. And it's not just a general good luck thing. It's specifically understood as a way to appease or ward off the spirits, the ghosts of the sailors, the ghosts of the women believed to still linger on those streets. History and belief are actively woven into commerce.
That blend of traumatic history and living ritual, that's a perfect bridge to our final location, the place everyone thinks of, Bran Castle in Transylvania. Dracula's castle.
Right, you almost have to include it. But we need a bit of clarity here based on the sources. Bran Castle looks the part, absolutely. It fits Bram Stoker's Gothic description, and yes, it's heavily marketed as Dracula's castle.
But the connection isn't historically solid.
Not really. It's never been officially confirmed as the character's main residence, nor was it even the primary castle of Vlad the Impaler, the historical figure Stoker drew inspiration from.
Okay, so the castle's fame is more about tapping into something else, like deeper regional folklore.
Exactly. It acts as a lightning rod for these much older, more local fears that existed long before Stoker wrote his novel. The real local lore isn't so much about aristocratic vampires, but about the strigoi. They're these malevolent spirits, often believed to be the restless souls of people who died unjustly or violently, or maybe were wronged in life. Children sometimes. They're said to rise at night, not necessarily to drink blood like Dracula, but to torment the living, cause misfortune, maybe drain their life force or energy.
That sounds much more rooted in sort of village-level folk belief.
It is. And the castle does lean into this now. They have exhibits, particularly on the fourth floor, I believe, that actually explain these local myths about the Strigoi. So it's a cool example of a place absorbing a global pop culture legend, Dracula, while still being connected to its original localized anxieties.
So wrapping this all up, we've gone from mass graves under Paris to wartime labs in Tokyo, prisons, courthouses, private homes.
And the common thread, I think, is pretty clear. Whether it's the sheer scale of death in the catacombs or the very specific personal despair of the Duchess and Amhouse, the fear, the belief in ghosts, it needs that historical context. These claims of haunting seem to be the atmospheric echo of profound human suffering or unrest.
Right. And for you listening, the takeaway really is how those specific details we talked about, Cell 14D in Alcatraz, Courtroom 33 in Toronto, the story of the Strigoi in Romania. They take a vague idea of a haunting and make it sharp, focused, and ultimately unforgettable. That's why these places capture our imagination, isn't it?
It really is. It's been a fascinating, if maybe slightly unnerving, deep dive into how history kind of sticks to places.
Well, thank you for joining us on this global tour of the unsettling.
And maybe a final thought for you to ponder. We all kind of expect mystery and spooky stories from places like Castle, right? Steeped in folklore. But what does it suggest about us, about human memory, that places designed for the opposite, for order, like Toronto's Old City Hall, or even for relaxation, like Toyama Park, that they too end up preserving their history primarily as sites of terror and tragedy? Is it the buildings themselves that are haunted? Or is it the memory of human actions, the unresolved parts of our past that we collectively can't seem to let go of?